my name is Stephanie Poppins, and I will be I'll be making connections with literature and Stoicism. Joe says, I'm loving the Pride and Prejudice Stoic diary. Such a fantastic idea. Thank you. Yeah, I'm quite proud of those, because I just thought I'm going to just put myself in the place of each of the characters, and I'm going to try and connect it with Stoicism, because as we know, Jane Austen was influenced by Stoicism, and she has Stoic threads running through her literature. But what I'm going to do first is we're going to tap in with our journal again, guys, because we always go back to the journal. We start with a journal. And as you know, on Insight Timer, we have the journaling course, the Stoic journaling course. But I wanted just to remind everybody the structure this takes is... morning, Robin, hiya. The structure this live takes is, I look at a question somebody sent me in, usually message me through the Female Stoic podcast. I look at that question and I attempt to answer it by making references to the literature we read together on my audiobooks, and also obviously references to Stoicism, which is what this is all about. And I'm going to start with this question today. I'm going to come off, haven't done the course yet, says Anastasia, but hope to when I'm settled in my new home. I'm glad that you made it, and I trust that you're feeling okay, Anastasia. That's good news. Okay, I'm going to get started. And the question this week is Lily message from Nova Scotia, which is actually quite fitting, because today I'm going to refer to Anne of Green Gables. I'm also going to refer to Pollyanna, which is another Stoic theme novel, both of them Edwardian. But let's just start with the message from Lily from Nova Scotia, who said, I lack resilience. My parents tell me so. I failed my driving test, and it sounds ridiculous that I can't seem to get beyond that. It's like I've completely failed at life. I've always been really sensitive about things like this. I know my parents don't mind, and I've said I'll pay for the next lessons, but why do I feel so bad? So we're going to talk about Lily's question today. And first of all, we're going to just tap in with the idea of daily journaling, because when we use our journals, we have something to refer to. So if we make a breakthrough, or if in fact we have a bad day and there's no breakthrough at all, we can refer back to our journals and say, do you know what? I had a bad day that day, but I can learn something from that by going back to it, looking over it. And this is what we're talking about today. We're talking about using our journal as a reference point to work out when we acted instead of reacted. Okay, so again, Lily's question is about failing her driving test. She feels really upset about that. And what she's done is had a huge emotional reaction. And she said, oh my gosh, I can't take it. I always behave like this. I always get upset by this. And I can't seem to stop this whirlwind of emotion. And as you know, especially guys on Insight Timer, as you know, I really promote the idea of journaling to tackle these things. So what I want us to do in our journal this week is use it for referencing when we acted rather than reacted. Every time we pause when something happens, or every time we create a distance between the action, whatever happened to us, and our reaction, we are adding another layer to our inner citadel. So what am I saying? I'm saying the beauty is in the pause. So we're using our journal either during the session today or afterwards, just to write down, or if you've got your phone with you and want to make a note on it, however you write down your notes, just to make a note of when we reacted to something before pausing. So what happened to us this week? What was the inciting moment where you thought, oh my God, no, that was horrible? It might have been something really small. It doesn't matter the size of what happened. What matters is how we reacted to it, because that's what Stoicism is about. It's creating a distance between the action and the reaction. Why? Because when we are reactive, it's damaging to our inner peace. It is placing a lot of focus, a lot of power on something that's fleeting, which is emotion. Emotion comes and goes, okay? And it's chaotic, it's not stable. And what we're trying to do as Stoics is create a stability. So, again, we're going back to the journal and we're saying, right, what we're going to write into our journal this week, what we're going to look at is when we acted instead of reacted. And we all do it. And it doesn't matter how many times or how good, how well practiced or well rehearsed we are, how many times, every single day is a new day and new things happen all the time. So if I can think about myself this week, I certainly reacted when the dog kept barking. I have a chihuahua and she chases magpies, which actually I've got no problem with, because the magpies are circling around the garden and they are bothering all my little friendly birds. But once she starts, chihuahuas are quite reactive and quite nervous dogs. Once she starts barking, she can't stop. And what I did was reacted. I felt myself getting annoyed. And instead of detaching myself from that feeling and saying, look, she's just a chihuahua, she's going to do that, just bring her inside, I said, Delilah, for goodness sake. And of course, that was a reaction. Now, we're human, we're going to react, so there are going to be different instances, different level of instances. But that's an example. So I can write that down and say, right, what do you do in that situation? You apply your knowledge, you apply the facts. You don't mind her chasing the magpies, so in a sense, you're complicit with this. But when she starts barking, it's time for you to take action. It's time for you to step in. And you distance yourself from that. Say she's just doing it. You distance yourself from the trigger. She's just doing it because she's a chihuahua and she doesn't stop. And she really isn't a barky dog at all. But it's very peaceful here at home. So I like to keep it that way. And then I've noted that down and I've remembered, it's better for you, Steph, if you do not either encourage that behaviour or let her out for longer periods of time where she's more likely to do that when the magpies are in the garden, for example. So in the case of Lily here, she has reacted to something and it's obviously at a different level. She feels like, and that's a very triggering word, isn't it? You failed at something. No one wants to hear or feel that. I didn't pass, I failed. But she feels like that's the end of the story. She's done all this work. And there's nowhere to go from there, which of course we all know. Many of us have done many, lessons over long periods of time before we got to the point we could pass. So what I'm saying is we take our journal and we write that down. Because what we have in Stoicism is we have a dichotomy of control. We have everything we can control, which is our reactions, and everything we can't. I cannot control the dog, but I can manufacture situations or organise situations or structure things around the knowledge that she will do that. And Lily can prepare for the next time she does a driving test. And as Marcus Aurelius would say, walk through the moment, Prepare yourself, pretend it's just happened, feel all the feelings, and then detach yourself from it. Because obviously this is detrimental to her inner peace. Now she's devastated, now she's really upset. So create that distance, just pause. Somebody shouts at you, somebody says something, just create those few seconds distance between the behaviour and your reaction. And look for patterns in your own behaviour. The brain is seeking confirmation all the time. So it wants reassurance of what it knows it's true. If your brain is saying to you, you're a reactive person, you're going to get triggered by that. Sure enough, your brain is looking for that confirmation bias. It wants you to remind it that you will be triggered by that. And what we're doing as Stoics is saying, no, actually, we're going to create a distance from that and we are going to try and avoid being triggered by that. Why? Because we value our inner peace, our homeostasis, more than the chaos. That's what we're saying. Now, obviously, there are different levels of situations, and we have to try and tap into our inner citadel. No matter the level of situation, it can get really bad. It can get really tough. We can have to move house. For example, Anastasia's just moved. Massive change. We can suffer ill health. We can suffer loss of family members, be they animals, be they relations. We can get to a point where we're surrounded by our peers or in a work situation where we cannot take the pressure anymore. And of course we are going to feel triggered every single day. And what we're saying is, right, well, we're going to need some tools for this, okay? So the dichotomy of control is saying, I understand when this person's shouting at me, there's nothing I can do about their behaviour. I understand when this person tells me I've failed my driving test, there's nothing I can do about that. But I'm just going to breathe, take a bit of time to accept that before I respond. And this is what these lives are all about, coping mechanisms for everyday life. And again, to go back to the podcast, The Female Stoic, there are tips on there, and there are tips in our own journals about our own life. Because what I say is, you should be journaling every day. And it's not a big commitment. It's like a 5-minute commitment. And it can be on your phone. I felt really terrible today because so-and-so had a go at me and I didn't know what to do. Done. Shut the phone. Come back to it 5-10 minutes later. Come back to it in the evening. Come back to it when you've had distance. And then say, right, what should I be doing about that? And what I should be doing is saying, yes, I gave it distance. I wrote it down and didn't react. Yes, I'm really proud of myself. Write that down. I'm really proud of myself. I didn't react. I created distance. Step 1. Step 2, say to myself, right, now, what am I going to do about that feeling that I have? I'm going to recognise it's a feeling, understand it is not me, it's just an emotion. And emotions, we understand as Stoics, are separate from ourselves. Okay? They are not us, they are separate from ourselves. There's a whole myriad of emotion. It's a whole rainbow of emotions. And what we have to do is recognise they're happening to us and say, right, okay, I'm just going to have to take a breath here and create a bit of distance from that emotion, because especially if it's anger or something really triggering, I have to protect myself from that. Get those walls of your inner citadel up and protect yourself, right? So we're looking for patterns in our behaviour, and we know that our brain is seeking confirmation of how we behave in response, and we're not going to give it the satisfaction, right? break the pattern. And we can only do that by daily practice. And daily practice involves this note-taking here. So this week, our little challenge is using our journal, writing down an instance. It might only be one, but we're trying to do this every day. An instance where we reacted instead of acted. Okay, and acted means you take a pause, you create a break, and then you make a decision based on with a calm mind about what you're going to do. I know this is easier said than done, but you've got to start somewhere, right? Okay, so we are exposing ourselves to other people that have done this. We are reading, we are listening to audiobooks, if you want to listen to my audiobooks, and I'm just going to tap into that now, for the people who have walked the walk before us, the famous writers, right? We are trying to connect more deeply with behaviour, with narratives, with ideas, not just surface level. That happens, I react in this way. We are trying to look internally and get more of an idea of who we are. That's what Stoicism is about. Again, with a journal, we are learning about ourselves, and you can never fully know yourself. There are still things that happen that shock me every day. I think, oh, right, didn't know I was going to behave like that. But it's very small behaviours, internal narratives that you have to check. It's a constant, continued endeavour. But if we are allowing ourselves to just be reactive to everything that happens, we are open to manipulation. Okay? And manipulation means that people see we're behaving in a certain way, we're reacting in a certain way, and they can gain from that. Because if I know that you are going to be upset every time I say X, Y, and Z, and there's something about you I don't like, I am manipulating you. If I know you are going to be overly impressed with something nice that I've said, I know I can manipulate you. Now, I'm not saying I walk around with malevolent intention, and most people don't. But we are not aware, we cannot be aware of what other people are doing at any one time. We can't. It's not possible. Okay? So what we can do, because they're external forces, we can just protect our internal well-being, our inner peace. Okay, so we're going to look today at Pollyanna and Anne of Green Gables. Why? Because one, we've got the Nova Scotia connection with Lily, who messaged in, and two, because we are looking at resilience. This is what Lily needs. She needs, by her own admission, to be more resilient to the feeling of that she gets when she feels that she has failed at something and everything associated with that. So you've got Ellen Montgomery's Anne of Green Gables, you've got Pollyanna. Those are two tracks that are still running. It's Anne of the Island, the premium tracks on Insight Time at the moment. And they both demonstrate sophisticated engagement with Stoic philosophy. You've got two young protagonists. You've got Anne Shirley and you've got Pollyanna Whittier. And what they do is they accept things. Now they're very young, but they both have really quite challenging circumstances. They're both orphans, and bearing in mind that these characters are written by women who have a working knowledge of what they're writing about. So that acceptance of circumstances, that adversity, the trials, and they were written in a time where life was a lot more difficult for a woman. So what we're saying is, Lily is at a point where she needs to understand there will be circumstances beyond her control, and by using the example set, if you like, by Ellen Montgomery and Eleanor H. Porter, we can understand that actually there are other ways of dealing with situations other than just reactivity. And that's what these characters represent. And they sort of set the mould. They created these great protagonists, and those protagonists have been repeated over and over again in literature, in film, in TV. And these were some of the first. So this is why we refer to them. Okay, so you've got Anne arriving at Green Gables. She discovers the Cuthberts want a boy, not a girl. She processes this news, and yet with remarkable equanimity she says, I might have known it was all too beautiful to last. I might have known nobody really wanted me. Rather than railing against fate, it is a bit reactive, but she's moving towards acceptance because she's demonstrating what Marcus Aurelius would have recognised as a Stoic practice of negative visualisation. She's mentally preparing for disappointment. They haven't said, I don't want you yet, but she's thinking, I need to get ready for that. And yet, she's sitting in the buggy with Matthew, she's going towards Green Gables, and she's detaching from that fleeting emotion. She's saying, look, I'm going to name that the white way of delight. And she's immersing herself in her natural environment, in this beautiful new island that she finds herself on. And similarly with Pollyanna, as we know if we're listening to the tracks, her response to being sent to live with her Aunt Polly after her father dies exemplifies that resilience. When faced with her aunt's cold reception and the bare, unwelcoming room that she's given up in the attic, she doesn't protest. Instead, she focuses on the thing that she can control, and that is her view. She goes to the window, she looks out, she says, you know what? There's something beyond this. Why is she doing that? Because she wants to survive. And reactivity is not going to help you survive. If you react to every single thing, if you have a chaotic response to every single thing that happens to you, it's not possible to stay well. It's not. And in the case of Lily, where she's saying, well, I failed this and test, and I always feel this way. She is, so this confirmation bias where her brain is saying, you know what, you always feel this way. She's just feeding that narrative. She's encouraging it almost. And what I'm saying is, and what Pollyanna is saying is, and what Anne Shirley is saying is, you know, there has to be some resistance that we have between the awful and the reality. And the reality is, I can reframe anything I want. And this is where we see with Pollyanna the glad game, where she looks for the good things. She's not pretending that awful things aren't happening, but she understands that there is something good in everything that happens. In the case of Lily, what she can take from this experience is, I'm one step closer to passing. I learned something this time. Next time I'm not going to do that. And it's the same with choosing to protect your inner citadel. Every time you do, you are learning something. You are learning that you can be resistant. You are teaching your brain. You are opening new pathways and teaching it new things. You are teaching it that you have got resilience, actually, and you are not a victim. And that's what we're talking about here. And again, to go back to the journal, if we write down this week, when was a time I reacted instead of just created some distance and thought about it? Okay, I'm going to write that down and I'm going to learn from that. And that's what we do. We take a situation, we learn from the situation, we do not judge ourselves on how we responded to the situation, but we write it down in our journal or on our phone and we learn from that situation. Okay, so we've got two protagonists. We've got Anne Shirley, we've got Pollyanna, and both of them are demonstrating what Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, called the discipline of desire. They are learning to want what happens rather than expecting what they want to happen. Acceptance. The principle is manifested most clearly in Pollyanna's glad game. And this bears a striking resemblance to Stoic exercises. It's reframing your perspective. I've just cut my thumb. Oh, my goodness me. Right, I'm going to get a plaster quickly. It's a good job I didn't cut my other finger. I need that. Or, oh, that really stings. Never mind, it'll go away in a minute. Reframing, trying to see the positive. It's not always possible, depending on the size of the problem. And no one's saying you negate or devalue your emotions. What they're saying is you create a distance between yourself and the emotion. The alternative is, I've cut my finger, I always do this, it's just another thing today. And that's your brain saying, oh yeah, you are always annoyed, aren't you? You do always get annoyed by the smallest things. Something else is going to happen in a minute and you're going to get annoyed by that as well. We are retraining our brain not to be reactive. We are creating a distance between the action and our reaction. This is what Stoicism is teaching us. These are the guides that we use in order to protect our inner citadel. That's what we're doing. And this glad game, taught to Pollyanna by her father, involves finding something to be glad about no matter what. When she explains the game's origin, she's articulating this Stoic principle. Not mere optimism, but a disciplined practice of cognitive reframing. We are recalibrating our brain. And this mirrors Marcus Aurelius' meditations. Very little is needed to make a happy life, he says. It is all within yourself. It is your way of thinking. It's not the end of the world that Lily failed her driving test, but it feels like that because she is used to feeling like that by her own admission. When something goes wrong, she's used to seeing it as the end of the world. And the reality is, it's just a moment. It's just one moment. It's irrespective of whether it happened before. Because this is a different moment in time. You learnt something different from that moment. It was a different driving instructor. It was a different day. The reality of it is her parents don't care. She's the one that is putting undue pressure on herself. Take some distance, take a breath, create a space from the action. And we see the same with Anne. She calls the avenue of trees the white way of delight. She sees beauty in the simple room she's given in Green Gables, be it quite sparse. She's finding richness within simplicity. We don't have to have the most sophisticated backdrop to our lives. We don't have to be living in a simulated hotel. We can be happy with our own special mug and the view through our window. But that's our choice, and we do have power over our choice. This is why I love Stoicism, because what it's saying is, you do have a choice. Not everything is beyond your control. And that empowers us to be able to cope. And nobody said that everything is going to be able to be transformed by the glad game. But what we did say was, we can learn and try every day. And again, this helps. There's a reason the Stoic philosophers journal, there's a reason writers journal, there's a reason that people who are serious about their mental health journal. And we do that because it keeps us on a sure footing. And life is chaotic, and we are doing our best to stay on level ground. I'm so glad I live in a world where there are Octobers, says Anne Shirley. This is L.M. Montgomery's voice. This is a person who sat there with a husband who was suffering from mental illness, who had spent a lot of her life having to be a certain kind of good girl and do the chores for her father, and when he remarried, tried to be the person that the new mother would accept, and then being sent away and trying to be a good granddaughter, and constantly just trying to fit in where actually all she wanted to do was escape and write. And she put her feelings, her life lessons into Anne of Green Gables, as well as her journals, as well as her other stories, many other stories. But she documented all that in her Prince Edward Island Chronicles, in everything she wrote, that was based in this idyllic place. That was a choice. It was her choice to carry on writing. It was her choice to create the repetition every day where she got up and she put pen to paper, albeit a lot more writing that she did than we might do. But she still made that choice. And she had many conflicting external pressures, and she still made that choice, as did Eleanor H. Porter, who wrote Pollyanna. These characters don't come from nowhere, they come from in here. And that's why we use them as reference points, because they're other women talking to us. And we are very lucky that their words are documented, because we don't all have significant female matriarchs in our life. Maybe we have had moments with different matriarchal figures that have influenced us, that have propped us, that have supported us. And it's really essential that we're supporting each other here and supporting ourselves. And of course, as a female, it's good to be supported by other females, but it's not always the case, which is challenging. As a woman, I found that very challenging. Well, we have a supportive space here, so that's good. Okay, so both characters are occasionally displaying intense emotions. We're not saying they don't have emotions, but obviously the literature is documenting their overall development, their Stoic path towards enlightenment, towards emotional regulation through reason and virtue. And they're both virtuous kids. They both have Pollyanna from her father and Anne from Matthew. They both have a clear set of right and wrong, someone to look up to, be they alive or dead, some reference point as to what's right and what's wrong and what their virtues are. And of course Marilla teaches Anne a lot along the way, and Rachel Lynde, be it through very different teaching styles than Anne might necessarily want. So we are moving towards this ataraxia, this tranquility, if you like. We're protecting our inner citadel. That's what we're doing. And Anne's famous temper, particularly in her confrontation with Rachel Lynde about her red hair, seems anti-Stoic to start with, but Montgomery is using these episodes to show her growth. And that's what we have to do. We have to look at our growth by documenting in our journal our growth from start to finish. We're not there yet, none of us. And that's what we're using the journals for. Again, to refer to the journaling course if you are thinking of just starting. Because this week we're looking at how did I react to something without creating a distance from it. That each week it's something different and we need starting points for that. And if you wake up one morning and just something comes into your head and you don't really know what it refers to, write it down anyway. Okay? Because it will have some meaning at some point. And Pollyanna's emotional regulation is more pronounced than Anne's. So Anne is more up, down, up, down, up, down. Pulling it in, pulling it in, pulling it in. Eventually, yes, she realises, you know what, this is not working for me. Getting really upset every 5 minutes, dyeing my hair a different colour because I jumped with excitement at the prospect of having a different appearance, of altering what I've got, right? Pollyanna, she seems to have more of a grip on her emotions and being able to regulate them so they don't overpower her. And in fact, with Pollyanna, it's her Aunt Polly who seems to be more up and down, which is interesting because it's almost hypocritical to the character that she professes to be. She's professing to be someone who is very in control, very staid, very organised. And yet this character comes along who says, look, just play the glad game, it'll be all right in the end. And she's thinking, well, I can't cope, I've never had a child, I don't know what to do with this child, and I don't really want all the problems that are coming with this, associated with this child. So in the case of Pollyanna, she's almost teaching her aunt how to be. But the messages are the same. Pollyanna says, how much trouble he avoids. Marcus Aurelius says, how much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbour says or does. So rather than avoiding, we are looking around, we are understanding the consequences of other people's actions, of our reactions, and of course, when we stay true to our virtues, when we are stable in ourselves, we change the energy of our environment. So, of course, it's beneficial for the community as well, the people around us. Now, that's very helpful if we are older sisters, mothers, grandmothers. That's very, very helpful. Even younger sisters if we are the emotionally regulated. Because other people benefit from that stability and they know that's a stable person right there. I can rely on them. I feel secure with them. I know they're not going to react if I tell them something and I need to share this. I know they'll create a bit of distance. I know they'll be calm. I'm not feeling calm. So you become this walking, talking inner citadel. And that's the point. And even if you're experiencing extreme emotion, you manage to say, right, I'm going to create some distance from that, but I'm not going to let my emotions control me. And I've said before in one of these lives, if it gets to such a point where it really is just too much, you escape. You just walk slowly away. I need to pop to the loo, or, I won't be a sec. I'm just going to go outside and get some fresh air. You escape. You create physical distance if you must, if it's too much. And you compose yourself and you start again. And this is what these young girls were teaching us. To start with, Anne can't do that. She learns to do that. Marilla advises her. Matthew, who is always very stoic and calm, teaches her through example. And with Pollyanna, she's actually the one that's understood. I'm going to have to be that person because nobody's stable for me. And that's the message here today. If that's you or you're in that situation, and that's the message for Lily, if she's in that situation, this always happens to me, I am always this person. Actually, you're not. You are telling yourself you're that person, but you're not. You are anyone you want to be, but you have to practice every day. I'm going to go back to the screen now and look at the comments. I hope that made some sense. Insight Timer, guys, you can see on my page that I've got my Stoic course up if you want to have a look at that. Right, let's have a look. Pollyanna, Callie says, embodiment of optimistic growth mindset, yes. She's a great character, isn't she? And Anastasia says, I love the glad game, yes. And it's been reframed so many times. It suits the popular narrative to somehow demote the value of coping mechanisms, demote the value of a stoic outlook. Because that means it cannot manipulate you. And it is in the interest of external forces to manipulate you, to do what they want. So what we're saying is, not today. That's what we're saying by using our tools. Okay. Okay, choosing the pause. Yes, Callie, exactly, choosing the pause. You don't have to say anything. Who said you have to say anything? And who said you have to respond in any way that you are not comfortable with? Anastasia says, you've inspired me to order the Stoicism 101 book. Yes, that's great. And I will be bringing one out, a journal with lots of lovely illustrations and things soon too. So we've got that to look forward to, with little slots in which you can, by the side of literary quotes, make your own notes and references as to how that inspires you. This gives me so much to go forward with, Robin says. Finding it easy to navigate all the challenges, others' negative and manipulating antics, etc. Yes. And people do manipulate a lot. And most times they don't even realise they're doing it. Bless them. And there is a part of us that is going to react to that and say, does it have to be me? Why am I the person who has to hold it all together? And my answer to that is, you are the only one you have control over. That's why. And that's hard to accept. That's really hard to accept. But that's the only control we have. We can't make other people be, say, think, do, feel the way we want them to. We cannot. So we have no choice but to just focus on our own well-being, you see. Enjoying your Stoicism and literature connections. Thank you. Thank you, Robin. A great talk as always. Very interesting thought that a repeat reaction, says Joe, from us can give others power, as they then know how to cause a reaction in us. That's right, yes. So we're just feeding them, aren't we? And the thought of retraining our brain is very empowering too, yes, and it's possible. It's really possible. When's that coming out, Stephanie? Around Christmas time, Anastasia, I'm hoping. Thank you for your teaching, Callie. Thank you for being there. Thank you all for being there. It's been lovely. I have to say, in the UK at the moment and in Yorkshire, it is roasting in here. So I'm going to go out now and I'm going to get some fresh air. But these Fridays are everything. I live for them. They're great. It's really great to get that connection going. Please look out for my Female Stoic podcast. I'm really trying to grow this, and I would really appreciate any comments, any reviews, any listens, any likes, anything. That's where the recordings of these lives are now. But I also put Stoic meditations and that on there too, because there are people who are, all over the place, and I'm trying to bring you all together. I shall see you next time. You can always DM me or message the group if you have any questions, and I'll see you on the other side. Have a good weekend. Bye.